10:50. I'm normally asleep at this time, but I'm having a bit trouble getting to sleep. So still got the Ray Brown and the Whispers to go, but we'll get there. Um, Good to see a few people showing some interest in these old records. Big Watts, Brian McAlpine, a few others. Good on you. Here's one some people might remember. MPD Limited, Little Boy Sad EP, with Lonely Boy on the other side. Two singles. I've got them on the singles, but I thought I'd show that because it's a picture sleeve. Down the bottom there, see, it says Everybody's Magazine. Couldn't get away from it in those days. The Packers had this country all sewn up. I know, I worked for that Packer bastard twice. The worst one, Kerry. I won't go into that. Yeah, this band, MPD Limited, are the most popular group in Australia today by virtue of their national hit successes, Little Boy Sad and Lonely Boy. Mike Brady, Peter Watson and Danny Finley are the members of MPD Limited. They are unique in Australian show business because they are one of the very few three-piece groups on the pop music scene. They toured with the Dave Clark Five when the Dave Clark Five came out here. Their Go records are now being released overseas countries, including the United States of America and New Zealand. That's an overseas country, can you believe it? Well, it is, but yeah, well, what can I say? This dude, Mike Brady, wrote that song Up There Kazali. That's where he made his money. And here's the Go label. Very, very cool label. Very few good releases on that label. I got a couple of Bobby and Laurie, good ones. I Belong With You's one of them on Go. Gorgeous label, but a bit like most of the other independents at the time. They had very, very few class acts. So there you have it. This is what I really want to talk about. This is for those of us that grew up in the Sutherland Shire, of my age bracket. I don't know about you, some of you youngsters that are a bit younger, but there was a band that was very popular in the Sutherland Shire and called the Creatures. And if you ever caught the train from, Gymea into the city, as you went through that tunnel just between Kirrawee and Sutherland, written on the wall there was the Creatures in white paint, and it was there for decades. 3-4 decades it was there. And then some idiot got rid of it. It was criminal to me because that was like ancient Greece sort of thing. You know what I mean? It's like, whatever. This is a reissue that came out in 1999 from the last pressing plant left in Australia, or Sydney anyway. A girl, I don't know what her name was, a female, but she ran her own little pressing plant out of Newtown, and pretty amazing because 1999 CDs had completely taken over, and vinyl was virtually dead. So this is a real gem because an original of Ugly Thing by the Creatures goes for an absolute fortune. They're just impossible to find in good condition. They just go for an absolute fortune. Now this comes with a beautiful little insert thing. See that 66 sound? if you can find the creatures doing Mona, which everyone did, but on the 66 sound label, you could retire a millionaire. And this is not far behind an original Ugly Thing on RCA. I've never seen them in the wild. They're impossible. Someone found them, but there were so few of them around. This is brilliant. It's got a whole story about them, band photographs. The lead singer was murdered. Now we have, I think two of them were Yugoslavs or Croats or whatever. Now there's Rudolph and Herman. Herman, Rudolph, Richard, Eric, and up top Keith. I think it's Keith. Yeah, Keith. The guy at the top, Keith, he was a pommy bastard. He was a singer. He was murdered. I don't know if any of you remember the tow truck wars back in, I was a cabbie back in the 70s on and off. But there was a thing called the tow truck wars in Sydney at the time. It was vicious stuff, nasty. You'd remember if there was an accident, suddenly there'd be 3 or 4 tow trucks would appear, and they used to beat each other up with iron bars and God knows what. Well, poor Keith, in the middle there, I think he was shot. He was killed, murdered in the tow truck wars, yeah. And their claim to fame is Glenn A. Baker put out a series of albums called Ugly Things, which is a lot of the underground Australian bands from the 60s. I've got a few here, and I'll show them over time. All I want to say is the Creatures, I remember we used to sit, this song, Ugly Thing, is, oh my God, it's ugly. It's legendary. It's an awesome, awesome track. I read Jim Keys from the Masters Apprentices biography, and one of his stories was they broke down on just on short of Tom Ugly's bridge, ran out of fuel, and they had to go to a gig somewhere in the Sutherland Shire. And by the time they got fuel and got to the gig, all the punters had gone home. But in the book, he says these cavemen came running at us with axes and iron bars. It was the Creatures. The Creatures were pissed off with the Masters Apprentices for not showing up. But what their thing was at the time, and these are very square sort of photos of the band, because in reality, they used to tour up and down the east coast of Australia. But Sydney, they were originally from the Western Victoria, out in the Mallee country. Some of them, most of them. But their thing was to go from Brisbane to Sydney back and forth. But they based themselves pretty much around the Sutherland Shire. And they always had, they were one of the first bands in the world, I believe. They all had different coloured hair, like these are square sort of shots. But in reality, they had like platinum blonde, bright green, all these weird colours. And you didn't mess with the Creatures. They were tough guys, And we sort of considered them a local band because they really did love the Sutherland Shire, And I never saw them live, unfortunately, but I did see them once. They pulled up in Hotham, was it Hotham Road or something, just off Gymea High School, Technical High School. I was sitting up there looking out the window, ignoring the teacher, and I saw this big American car pull up. And one girl in our school, I won't name her last name, but her first name was Lynn, was known as a bit of not a groupie really, but I guess she could have been. I remember seeing this big American car pull up, like an early 60s huge Cadillac sort of thing, whatever it was. And they had the hair, the silver, the green, or the hair. They were dressed up to go somewhere to do a gig. And this Lynn girl ran across the road there, I think it's Hotham Road, and jumped in the car and off it went. And so I actually saw the Creatures briefly. That'll do for now. It's gone 10 minutes. See you later.